The most amazing archaeological discoveries are the ones that force us to rethink everything we think we know about history. In reality, a lot of what we know about the ancient world is still uncertain. That's because it's built on pieces that don't always tell the full story. So that means even a single discovery can change everything. And every find you're about to see in this video does exactly that, changing how we look at the past and what we thought was even possible. So, let's get started. Number 15. The Egyptian eye doctor mummy. For nearly a century, this mummy sat with the wrong identity. When it was first taken from Egypt in the early 20th century and brought to Spain, it was believed by many experts to belong to a woman. And that wrong assumption stayed in place for decades without much question. It was not until modern scanning techniques were used that the truth began to surface. The mummy was actually a man named Nespa Medu, who lived more than 2,000 years ago and worked as both a priest and a physician, or more specifically, he was an eye doctor. That detail came from small plaques found within the wrappings, one of which depicted Thoth, a deity closely tied to immense knowledge and healing. These kinds of symbols were not placed randomly. They usually reflected the life or role of the person being buried. Even with this new understanding, a few details remain unclear, including certain burial choices that do not fully match what we would expect for someone in his position. So, do you want to share your theories on this? Number 14. Egyptian mummy with dirt inside the skull. Well, now, this one doesn't follow the usual pattern. When scientists scanned a 3,200-year-old Egyptian mummy back in 2015, they expected to find an empty skull. That's how the process usually worked. The brain would be removed during mummification. But in this case, it wasn't. And we don't know why, but the brain was still there. And on top of that, there was a dark material inside the skull that didn't belong. It wasn't something that got in later. It had been placed there at the time of the burial. That's where things get completely unclear. It could mean the person doing the mummification made a mistake and tried to deal with it. Or it could mean they were trying something different. Either way, it doesn't match what we expect from that period. And it shows that not every Egyptian burial followed the same process as cleanly as we usually think. Number 13. Gosford glyphs. Some discoveries sit in that uncomfortable space where no one fully agrees on what they're looking at. The Gosford glyphs in Carillon are one of those cases. Carved into sandstone walls, the markings resemble ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, and that alone has kept the debate alive for decades. Archaeologist Rex Gilroy once argued they could be around 4,500 years old, suggesting Egyptians somehow reached Australia long before recorded history allows. Others strongly disagree, pointing out that many of the symbols contain mistakes no trained Egyptian scribe would make. To them, it looks more like a modern imitation than something ancient. Supporters push back, saying even in Egypt, errors did happen, especially outside formal monuments. The bigger issue is context. No similar carvings have been found anywhere else in the country. That leaves a gap no one has been able to explain. Until stronger proof appears, the glyphs remain caught between possibility and doubt, refusing to settle either way. Number 12. Altai Mountains, trepanation skulls. There is a difference between attempting surgery and actually succeeding at it. What was found in the Altai Mountains in 2014 falls into the second category. That's because archaeologists found skulls showing signs of trepanation, a procedure where a hole is cut into the skull, usually to relieve pressure from an injury. On its own, that is already surprising and scary, but the real detail is what happened after. The bone showed clear signs of healing, which means the person survived the procedure. One man in particular had suffered a serious head injury, and the operation appears to have given him enough relief to keep living for years afterward. That raises a bigger question than the surgery itself. How did they know how to do this? Siberia was far removed from places like ancient Greece, where similar medical ideas existed. Whether this knowledge developed separately or traveled across distances, it suggests people understood more about the human body than we usually assume. It worked perfectly, but not for everyone. Number 11. Jiaojia, Graveyard of Giants. There is something pretty scary and mysterious about finding a pattern where none should exist. That is exactly what archaeologists encountered in Jiaojia, China, when they uncovered a burial site filled with unusually tall individuals. Dating back around 5,000 years, the remains suggest that many of these people stood over 6 feet tall, which might not seem remarkable today, but was extremely rare for that time and region. The site contains over 200 graves, surrounded by the remains of houses and what may have been ritual pits. That kind of layout points to an organized community rather than a random settlement. Researchers believe these people were part of the Longshan culture, known for its black pottery. As for their height, theories vary. Some suggest diet played a role, especially access to protein-rich food, while some think genetics or social structure may have influenced it. What stands out is how many tall people were found in one place, something that still lacks a clear explanation. China is amazing. Number 10. The Horse of Mizuko. Not every archaeological discovery is buried underground, and some are right there on the surface waiting to be noticed. The Horse of Mizuko in Portugal is one of those examples. Carved into rock thousands of years ago, this massive figure stretches over 20 feet in length, its shape still clear despite the passage of time. It dates back to the Upper Paleolithic period, making it at least 12,000 years old. What makes it fascinating is not just its size, but the attention given to detail. The lines are deliberate, the proportions carefully considered, suggesting the people who made it invested time and effort into getting it right. It is not an isolated piece either, like other ancient artworks. The surrounding area contains thousands of engravings, forming a much larger picture of artistic expression. Even so, the creators remain unknown. All that remains is the work itself, so quietly holding on to a story that has never fully been explained or understood. Number 9. Windover Pond, Bog Bodies. America is often called a young country, but that only works if you start the clock with European colonization. Windover Pond ruins that idea fast. Hidden beneath its waters is a prehistoric cemetery containing the preserved remains of people who lived and died around 8,000 years ago. That places them here long before the pyramids rose in Egypt. Archaeologists found the bog bodies in 1982, and the peat at the bottom of the pond preserved them so well that even fragments of woven cloth survived in some burials. That alone is rare, but the deeper shock came later through DNA analysis. The results suggested links between these ancient people and modern South Asians. And the findings also showed that the same genetic group returned to this place to bury their dead for centuries. That matters because it challenges the old idea that people in ancient North America were too nomadic to build lasting traditions in one sacred place. Number 8. Casa Grande Ruins. Standing in the Arizona desert, Casa Grande does not look like something that should have survived as long as it has. Built by the Hohokam people in the 13th century, the structure rises several stories high, made from layers of caliche hardened over time. Even in its worn state, it still holds its shape, which says a lot about the people who built it. The Hohokam were not just surviving in the desert, they were shaping it, building irrigation canals and structures that required planning. Casa Grande appears to have served a purpose beyond simple shelter. Its windows and walls align with the movement of the sun and other celestial events, suggesting it may have been used for observation or ceremony. The materials used also raise questions. Wood from distant regions was brought in despite local alternatives being available. That choice was deliberate, even if we no longer understand why. The structure keeps its purpose quiet. Number 7. Point Rosé Viking Site. For years, the story felt settled. Vikings reached North America, but only at known sites like L'Anse aux Meadows. Then Point Rosé made things less certain. Located on the Canadian island of Newfoundland, this site has drawn attention for what appears to be evidence of early ironworking. Archaeologists found signs of a hearth where iron ore had been processed, along with stones darkened by the same activity. And that detail matters because the native populations in the area at the time did not use this kind of technology, but the Vikings did. What makes this site even more interesting is its possible age. Some researchers believe it may predate known Viking settlements, which could push their arrival in North America further back than previously confirmed. There are also signs of structures resembling longhouses beneath the surface. If those findings hold, then the Vikings were not just visitors here, they may have stayed longer than expected. Number 6. Dolmens of Antequera. Well, the dolmens of Antequera in Spain feel almost impossible. We mean big stone structures, carefully arranged thousands of years ago, still stand with a presence that refuses to fade. There are 3 main monuments at the site, built roughly 5,000 years ago during the Bronze Age. Each one aligns with the sun during key points of the year, but what makes them stand out is something else entirely. Some of the stones used here weigh as much as 180 tons. To put that into perspective, the heaviest stones at Stonehenge are only a fraction of that weight. And yet somehow, these were transported and placed with precision. The stone itself does not even come from the immediate area, which raises more questions than answers. These were burial sites, but the people buried within remain unknown. The engineering alone suggests a level of planning and capability that feels far beyond what we usually expect from that period. Number 5. New South Wales European Skull. Sometimes, a discovery appears that feels almost too inconvenient to be true. And that is exactly the reaction to a skull found in New South Wales in 2011. It belonged to a European man who lived sometime in the 1600s, more than a century before Captain James Cook reached the east coast of Australia. Carbon dating confirmed the age through both the bone and the enamel of the remaining teeth, pointing to a birth around 1650. If accurate, it creates a serious gap in the accepted timeline, which says no Europeans arrived there before 1770. Not everyone is convinced, though. Some archaeologists believe the skull may have been planted as part of a hoax, possibly taken from a collection and placed at the site deliberately. That idea sounds far-fetched, but history has seen similar deceptions before. Until proven otherwise, and the skull leaves behind an uncomfortable question about who might have arrived long before Cook ever did. Number 4. Ancient Egyptian wooden prosthetic toe. Now, this is one of the mind-bending ancient discoveries. We mean it is easy to think ancient medicine was basic, but discoveries like this tell a different story. A completely new one. Found in a tomb near Luxor, a wooden prosthetic toe dating back around 3,000 years shows a level of care that feels surprisingly modern. At first, researchers thought it might have been attached after death, simply to complete the body for burial. But closer examination revealed something else entirely. The toe had been adjusted multiple times, reshaped over the years to fit its owner as her body changed. That means it was not just symbolic. It was actually used during her lifetime. And the design itself is detailed, with a structure that allows it to function naturally alongside the foot. It was even fitted with a leather strap for stability. Taken together, it suggests this was not a crude replacement, but something made with intention and understanding. It allowed the wearer to move comfortably, something we rarely associate with ancient prosthetics at all. Number 3. Great Pyramid Thermal Anomalies. The pyramids have been studied for centuries, yet they still find ways to hold something back. In 2015, a team of researchers used infrared scanning to study the Great Pyramid of Giza, hoping to uncover hidden structural details. What they found instead raised new questions. Certain stones near the base of the pyramid showed unusual temperature differences compared to those around them. And these thermal anomalies were not random. They appeared in specific areas, suggesting something beneath the surface might be different. Possible explanations have been suggested, including hidden chambers, air currents, or variations in construction materials, but none of them fully explain the pattern. Similar anomalies were also detected higher up in the structure. The scans were taken during both heating and cooling cycles, which makes the results harder to dismiss as a pure coincidence. It adds to the growing sense that there are still parts of the pyramid we have not fully understood, no matter how long we have studied it. Number 2. The land of Punt and the mummified baboons. For a place that once mattered so much, Punt has left behind surprisingly little. Ancient Egyptian records describe it as a major trading partner. And a land rich in resources, yet its exact location remained a mystery for centuries. There are no confirmed monuments, ruins, or anything solid to point to on a map. What changed in that picture came from something strange: mummified baboons. These animals were imported into Egypt thousands of years ago and often buried with care, sometimes even preserved like royalty. Back in 2020, researchers studied tissue samples from dozens of these baboons and compared them with modern populations across Africa. The results pointed toward the Horn of Africa, linking the ancient animals to regions that now include Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. It is not a final answer, but it narrows the search in a way nothing else has. A lost kingdom is still missing, but at least now it has a direction. Number 1. The Persian Princess Mummy Hoax. At first, it looked like one of the most important discoveries ever made. Back in 2000, a mummy believed to be an ancient Persian princess was presented to the world, complete with a golden mask, a decorated coffin, and an inscription claiming she was the daughter of the legendary King Xerxes. Now, everything about it seemed convincing. The details matched what historians expected, and the presentation felt carefully constructed. But that confidence did not last. As experts began examining the mummy more closely, small inconsistencies started to appear. The writing on the inscription was not quite right, and certain aspects of the mummification process did not match ancient practices. Then came the final blow. Scientific analysis showed the body was only a few years old and had likely died from a broken neck. What had been introduced as an ancient royal burial turned out to be something far darker, possibly a staged deception, or worse, a crime hidden behind the appearance of history itself. What do you think about it? With it, that's all. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you very soon.